Welcome to Online Presenters Toastmasters. We are dedicated to learning skills for better webinars and online events. And an important part of how we pursue that mission is with workshops like this one. After today, we will also have Cheryl Rausch coming to visit us on January 22nd, so not too far away. And she told me her presentation will be how to connect with any audience. So how to get that audience in the first place, how to make a good connection with them, whether that's online or off. In February, we're planning to do a panel discussion on how to start an online club, which we have some familiarity with. And hopefully we'll be able to bring in some other folks as part of the panel discussion to discuss how others might be able to accomplish that. We want to thank RingCentral for allowing us to use this online meetings platform at no cost. RingCentral Meetings is essentially an addition of Zoom that is integrated with some of their other products, including Glip team messaging, which I work on. And they want me to let you know that RingCentral is winning in the cloud. Actually, the cloud is winning, RingCentral is winning in the cloud. Everything's winning. Everything's coming up roses there. We do encourage you to pay attention to the audio. So mute yourself when it's not your turn to speak. From time to time, we will mute everybody except for the active speaker, just because we do run into problems with audio feedback and other issues. And it's a good idea if you have a headset, or at least even a pair of earbuds will prevent audio feedback a little bit. You can turn your video on and off as well, but we do want to be able to see the audience. There are two modes to the video. There is a speaker view where you see the active person who is speaking, and there is a gallery view where you get to see this Hollywood Squares view of everybody. If you are interested in becoming a member, there is a page on our website called Join that has the application. It has something you can click on to pay online. We do ask you to first attend 2 meetings as a guest and understand that this is an advanced club. It's not oriented towards absolute beginners. If you don't have at least 6 Toastmasters speech under your belt, we can make an exception to that minimum requirement. You would make a 1 to 2 minute speech about why you want to join and what you can contribute, and the board votes. And we do tend to, as long as people make a good case for why they would be a good member of the club, we do tend to say yes more often than not. With that, let's do it. So this is our program for today. I suggested the title of How to Make the Most of Online Stage Time. Part of Darren's brand is stage time, stage time, stage time. He has, in addition to being the 2001 World Champion of Public Speaking, he started something called StageTimeUniversity.com, which Masako was promoting and testifying for earlier. So he has taken his on-stage talents, he's taken them online. See, one thing that's interesting about Darren in terms of talking about online presentations is he gained his fame as a world champion in a speech where he fell on his face dramatically as part of his act. So there was this on-stage pratfall. Well, you can't do that too well in front of a webcam, or at least it would be difficult. But on the other hand, you can do things in the online environment that maybe would be difficult to do in person. So we're going to ask Darren to take us through how he thinks about those trade-offs. And we're going to make sure that we have time for questions at the end. So that means it is time for me to shut up. I'm going to go through the routine of making sure that all the microphones are muted except for Darren's. Or Darren, if you could just unmute yourself. So take me a minute. Oh, there it is. You're all on mute. And you are on, sir.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everyone for joining me. I'm delighted to have you. David, thanks for inviting me. And it was really cool that you just walked up to me and said, hey, this is what we're doing. We have an online Toastmaster club, and would you join us? And I love Toastmasters. So wherever I travel around the world, I offer to do a free workshop. And I've had a crazy schedule in the past month. I've spoken in Italy, China, 4 different cities, and Canada. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Here's what you need to know. You got to make it about the participant, not about you. And my plan for this is I'm going to give you some ideas from what I do and how I do it. Online is still something that's, even though I've been doing it for a fair amount of time, I still am constantly trying to find it and make it better. How do I do it better? So write this down or jot this down. Your goal is to engage the page. You've got to get your people to engage the page. And what are they listening? Because it's so easy to get distracted. There's so many different things going on in front of everyone that you have no control over. So in the sense that you're in front of Toastmasters, we're live and we're always nice. We're always going to clap. You can do anything. You can be horrible and we'll clap. That's great. It's not reality. For you and I as presenters, we need to get engagement. It's so important. So storytelling is such an important key. So I'm going to show some, and David, please feel free to jump in. And I also want to keep this a conversation. Rather than here's a program and here's what you should do, I want to give you some tips, some ideas, what's helped me. But I know there's some people online, like we have our friends, the Geek Squad there, the Geek Tour. Hold on, let me make sure. I want to honor the name, Geeks on Tour. That if you look, so let me step back just for a second. If you want to do this, and whether it's professionally or even if you just want to be on something and give the professional appearance, I want you to look at who's got good lighting. This might sound crazy and irrelevant, and if you're just on learning, that's fine. But when you become the presenter, you've got to be aware. So if we look at our Martin Brosman, Martin's got an awesome background, super classy. His lighting's really good. Might light your face up just a little more because your background's a little brighter than you. My favorite, Masako, oh my gosh. She's so adorable. You can't not love her energy. Again, I'm not here to pick on anything down. I'm just here to show, here's what's working. Let's see. There was a few more great examples. David, obviously you're doing this. Adrian, I love you and I've known you for years. I don't know if you're doing film in a black room or I'm not sure the purple sheen going on. Roger from Dallas, perfect lighting. You almost look too perfect. Excuse me. Michael from Parkland, Florida, great lighting, but lighting matters. And when you start doing this on a regular basis, Trisha, you got great lighting. And then, of course, our Geeks on Tour, they've got a green screen. They're down with it. They're living up to their name. And honestly, when you have a reputation like that and that's what you talk about, you better be good. You better be better than most because otherwise we're questioning why we should be listening to you. So here's what I'm going to show you is if you don't already have one, this is one of those powerful tools, $10 at Home Depot. And this is a simple dimmer switch. And what's cool about it is in my office where I am right now in Las Vegas, and I'm sorry for the snow. I'm glad you love the snow in Michigan. That's why I moved from Boston to Las Vegas. But right in front of me, I have a light kit. So if you want to do this professionally, highly recommend. It's very simple, $150 on Amazon.com, getting a light kit. So I have the light in front of me on that dimmer switch. So notice I can change it and my camera adjusts. But if I was supposed to be a professional and an expert and I was presenting like this, you might still listen, but you and I need every advantage we can. So what it does, I have a lot of windows in my office. So throughout the course of the day, the light's always changing. And just sitting at my desk, just like I am now, I can control it. I also learned an important lesson in Italy that behind me, I have this beautiful It's like a framed plaque. It has the tie I was wearing when I won the world championship. It has a picture of me and da-da-da. And somebody made this to me and gave it as a gift, so I put it up in my office. However, what I've learned recently is most people can't tell what that is. So it becomes confusing rather than cool. If you're in my office, it looks cool. So I'm in the process of, I immediately want to fix everything as good as I can. So I went to a sign company here, and I'm in the process of getting my logo blown up, like a foam core logo or something that you can put up behind you to help build your brand. All right, so that's number one. Number two, I'm going to show you here. The beautiful thing about online video is, A, you've got to get comfortable with it. So I'm familiar with Zoom, which is very much like Ring Central, but you've got to get comfortable. So it's almost like Ring Central time, Ring Central time, Ring Central time. You've got to get comfortable. In fact, Michael Davis, who Masako is very familiar with because he hosts a lot of my calls as one of my coaches, he's actually starting to go out and do webinars now because he's handled so many of them for me, so he's gotten comfortable. But you need some world-class images, because images is the way to engage people and keep them connected to you. And then we also need, so I'm going to back out for a second here. I'm going to stop sharing. And when I share, there's a little box that says optimize for full screen video and share computer sound. So I need to know that, whoops, see, I'm not perfect. By the way, it's okay to not be perfect as long as you're giving good content. All right, so here we are again, hitting play. So this is a video that I use when I'm speaking live. When you're online, understand we've got to almost think of it this way: stretch and compress. Time stretches and time compresses when you or I are online presenting. Let's say in a normal slide presentation, in a 45-minute keynote speech, if you use 30 slides in 45 minutes, online you almost want to double that on a webinar, meaning you want 60, 80 slides if you're going to do a slide-heavy presentation. So check this out.
And the 2001 World Champion of Public Speaking, Darren LaCroix. King Darren, your subjects would like to hear a few words from you.
Man, that's cool. My first prayers, I asked God if the other 8 contestants could just go over time. That's all I wanted. Again, thank you to my district, Dave McElhaney, Carmen, of course, the great, the one and only, the genius of speaking, Mark Brown, David Brooks, Ed Tate. The champions are so gracious, giving me wisdom and advice, and I knew I would work hard, but they helped keep me on the right track. But I'd really like to dedicate this to 2 men in my life. Just one more little thing. Did anyone else ever cry during this thing? Am I the first one? Does that count as a gesture? Be careful what you tell your kids, because after the silence, I'll never forget. My dad probably doesn't even remember. He said, I don't care what you want to do. Just be the best. And I am, Dad. Someone just said, you're the world champion. What are you going to do now? I'm going to Disneyland.
So when you're speaking live and you use slides, there's a magic button called the B button. And what that does is it renders the screen black or blank. And what that does is it emotionally shifts the energy, or the attention, I should say, from the slide to you. And I always teach corporate presenters this, that you need the B button at the beginning, at the end, and whenever you want that engagement. It's not having the slide up. It's not having the slide go black. It's actually the shift between the two. So just like now, what I'm doing is going between me and I will share some slides. So now when I switch over and show another medium, so I'll give you another quick example here. When I switch over to another medium, now it's different. When I stop, and come back, it now re-engages you. So almost think of what's your pace element. So you want to be changing it as often as you can, but not too much. You want to engage the audience, but not distract them. So we want to change the modality, create a point, get an idea, get questions, change the modality, get a point across, and then change again. So we're always keeping that engagement. Now, my best tip for you comes from Patricia Fripp. She says it's not one thing that makes the audience listen. It's a series of many things. But if there was one, it would be that your subject is of interest to your viewers. If your subject is of interest to your viewers, they're more likely to be engaged. Why? Because they care. And you got to define it this way. Whether you're doing a 7-minute speech at Toastmasters, a 45-minute webinar, you've got to look at it this way. What's the problem that you're helping the audience solve? What's the problem that you're helping the audience solve? Now, I just showed you a video that engages me to the audience that I use live and I can obviously use online. 2 ways to use video as an introduction. Number 1, to connect them emotionally to you. And that's what that is purpose is of that video. I also have other videos for other speeches that I do where I use it to connect the audience emotionally to the problem I'm helping them solve. So either connecting them to you or to the problem that you're helping them solve. So if we were doing a presentation on the fear of public speaking, I might have some images on some videos with permission. You never use anything just off of YouTube because you like it. That's illegal, by the way. Using a way to connect people to the fear of public speaking, if that's what you were going to talk about, and if that was going to be the problem you were going to help them solve. Now, let me back up. Even before, because it's so challenging engaging your audience, even before a presentation, what can you do to get and create anticipation of your presentation? What can you do beforehand? So backing up, so in my Stage Time University, Masako, I always say Masako knows that I will send out a video a day before to get people excited about the call. So what can you do to increase the anticipation before they even get there? Maybe you can use curiosity. Maybe you can use part of a detail or part of a point that you're going to make that gets them curious. How is he going to show us how to engage the audience before? So what can you do? If you care about your audience, if you care about your message, look, it's a lot of work. But if you love what you do and you care about your message, you'll do it. You'll find a way. But most importantly, you'll constantly try to improve. So going back, so again, ahead of time, how can you create anticipation? At the beginning, what can you do to engage them emotionally to the subject or to the problem you're helping them solve? Now, here's another key to that. When I show that video live, I'm using it. So you notice there was some humor in it. And Adrian, VP of Education, Adrian, thank you for your laugh. Love your energy. And that's a smoke and smile. So what it does, what that humor does, you're welcome. What it does is it lets me know what level my audience is at. So I always show that, and I know the kind of laughs it usually gets. But sometimes an audience is maybe tired, maybe it's late in the day, and say their energy level is here. If their energy level is here, I can't come on, hey, everybody, welcome, it's great to be here. There'll be an emotional disconnect. If I'm speaking in front of a sales group or a direct selling organization, their energy is usually way up here no matter when it is. Well, I can't come on and say, hello, I'm really happy to be here today. It's such an honor to see you. Again, we have an emotional disconnect. So what the test humor does is allows me to see about what level they're at so I can match them. Once I match them, I can take them where I want them to go. Make sense? So another tip, try never to give the answers away. Get the audience to want to know the answer before you give it to them. Really key to engagement. Get them to want to know. Get them to guess. And David, I don't know if you show them polling or not, but some webinar formats give you the ability to poll your audience. So even though you know the answer, if you can engage them in thinking about it before you get there, before you present it, it will make it more memorable. See, it's so hard with so many distractions going on to keep that audience engaged. So the more energy you have for them, the more you can use curiosity to get them to want to know where you're going. Let me give you a quick example. So forgetting the slide for a second, stop sharing. One of my clients, Boston client, they do presentations for search engine optimization. Now, everyone knows, so just raise your hand on this. Raise your hand if you know the #1 search engine in the world. Just raise your hand. #1 search engine in the world. Okay, so that's one way to get engagement. Now, what I taught my clients, because this is what their company does, and they're pitching, they have about a 20-minute presentation, and they're pitching a $140,000 a month contract. So generally, the committee that's sitting there brings in 3 or 4 different companies. They all do their presentation. Well, if I just say, well, you know Google is the #1 search engine, like, yeah, I know that. That's why you're here. That's why everyone knows that. That's boring and dull. But if you can give it a twist and find a way to engage, so for example, what I taught them to do, what they're teaching people is the search engine landscape. Meaning the different market shares, Google, Yahoo, Bing, Ask Jeeves, or Ask, all the different search engines. So if instead of saying, what do you think is the most important one, and just showing a slide with the search engine landscape, they call it, they ask them, okay, raise your hand if you know Google's #1. Yes. Do you know who's #2 and 3? And is it more important to be found in Yahoo and Bing than it is Google? Now, they don't have that answer. So what that does is it brings them in and leans them in to get curious. Remember, our goal is to get them to engage the page, get them to want to know what's coming. So we almost have to tease them a little bit without just giving them the answers. Just being direct is too easy. So for example, one of the things that I teach is the different habits, the habits that took me from chump to champ. So habit number 2 is record yourself every time. And I know what you're thinking. I don't want to record myself. I hate to listen. Oh, well, guess what? We had to listen. What makes you so special? So I have them write it down, and then I say, look, this is like a presentation called Chump to Champ when I'm speaking to Toastmasters about what took me from where I was when I bombed at a comedy club in 1992 to winning the world championship. What's the difference? And I talk about habits. So I say to people, now look, I've traveled the world for Toastmasters. And I've had many people who are jealous of the trophy. I get that. I understand that. I was jealous of the 3 women and the men who had won before me since 1938. But in all my travels, I've never, ever been jealous of, or never had anyone jealous of, my closet of videotapes that I've gone back and studied. You want to be jealous of the work ethic that brought me the trophy. So you see Adrian nodding there. Thank you. Adrian, I don't know if you're old enough to know what a videotape is. But anyway, thank you for laughing. That's the other thing. You have to get used to non-reaction when everybody's muted.
I actually was going to ask about that. You were talking about trying to gauge the audience, and you see Adrian laughing. I think maybe she accidentally unmuted at one point, so maybe you heard something. Mostly in some webinar formats, there is no audio feedback. It's just you present, and they can maybe type at you. Even Facebook Live is like that.
I've used VHS.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deanna. And see, that's what we need to realize, that presentations online are different, but a lot of the principles are the same. Here's the thing. You and I love applause. That's one of the reasons we go to Toastmasters. I'm not going to lie. We love reaction. We love when people love us. That's why we do it. That's one reason. So we have to get comfortable without the reaction, and that's challenging. So one of the things, watching, like right now, watching the views of everyone, I can tell who's engaged and who isn't engaged. The people are smiling. But here's what you and I need to do. A, we need to focus on the people who are engaged, because they're going to feed us. See, we give them energy, they give us energy. The challenge is a lot of people will look at that person not engaged and think, oh, I got to work harder. But then you come across as desperate. What we need is the mix. Now, if everybody's kind of not paying attention, we've got to do something to re-engage them. So, David, thank you for bringing that up. And if you have anything else, please, by all means. Here's the other thing that I just used that I want everyone to know. If you're a presenter, whether live or online, but especially online, you need to start collecting some of your own visuals. Using smartphones is so important these days, but you need to capture your own visuals. If you see something that could be a good analogy when you're in the airport or walking down the street, or take a picture. Take a picture. Now it becomes yours. If you use clip art, you are cliche. If you use clip art, you are cliche. You need to either purchase some, but the problem is a lot of services, if you purchase the cheap ones, well, someone else has purchased them too. That's not fun. We have to check with our geeks on tour if they've got any tips on that. And by the way, I love your logo behind you. That's awesome. Sweet. Let's see. So anyway, you've got to start creating some of your own custom visuals. And a lot of you have probably heard me talk about stage time, stage time, stage time. Well, I thought, how can I get that across? And in this presentation, I talk about, I say, when you say no to stage time, you're saying no to your own growth. That's what my mentors taught me. In fact, my license plate in Las Vegas says stage time. I never want to forget the habit that brought me here. Okay, so it's just had a friend take this picture. It's not that hard, but you've got to start using your own, and you also need to be aware of branding. And starting, if you want to do this professionally especially, you have to be aware of branding, and you want your slides to look clean and professional. I'm going to show you a quick example here. Bear with me. So this is something I did not know when I first started, but I do know now and see its importance. I was not aware. I knew what branding was, but I thought that just meant you're supposed to show, look professionally. But I didn't realize all my slides and all my things are supposed to work together. So this is what's called a basic branding palette, is what I call it. but these are my brand colors. And if you notice, it's got the hex, the CMYK, and the RGB. So these are just the digital numbers that reflect those colors. So online, they might use the hex, or in print, they use another way. On video, they use another one. So this basically gives the person who's creating things for you your slides, or allows you to adjust it to make it right. So this is just something very simple, but if you notice, all my slides are around that. So you want to start, the sooner you start looking professional, the sooner you're going to be cleaner, clearer. You're not going to be distracting, because if you have people and they have crazy slides, or people are using too many transitions, we shouldn't get focused on your transition. We shouldn't get focused on what font is that, or that's really cool. We should get focused on what the image is about and what it means to us. So David, I'm going to stop and take a breath here and see if anyone has any questions so far.
Actually, we encourage people to maybe start posting questions in the chat. Adrian was trying to keep the chat a little bit quiet so that you wouldn't see too many things popping up in the corner of the screen, Darren. But we probably had a few questions. Maybe you could, Adrian, if you can try and collate some questions as they're coming in. But one thing I thought we could ask you about is you do certain events that are in-person events, but you have online participation. And there's sort of a similar scenario where some Toastmasters clubs, maybe to boost attendance or appeal to people who may be traveling, they're trying to allow online attendance. But when you have some people in the room, how do you ensure the participation level for the people that are remote to make them feel like they're really part of it? How have you solved that in your practice?
That's a great question. And actually, up until August, we did a horrible job at it. And then one of my business mentors, Ford Sakes, he joined me and we co-presented, and he said, this is ridiculous. We need to see people and they need to see us. They need to hear us and we need to hear them. And so what we did is we brought in a big monitor. So it looks like a regular size TV, put it on the chair, connected it to the Zoom. So we use Zoom, which is Ring Central basically. And we had the audio from the computer connected up to my acoustic wave music system. So basically a little speaker system in the room. And here's what we did. When we broke, because it's a training, what we do is mostly trainings in Las Vegas, storytelling, the business of speaking, train the trainer. So whenever we break into exercises, we actually now mute what's happening live, and we take all of the people online and we turn them into a group. So when we're doing a live exercise, they're doing a live exercise and they're chatting with each other too. So when we present slides using Ring Central, we do the same thing, and just like this. So half the audience will be in front of us and half the audience is online. So this allows people to engage from anywhere in the world. And if you go to stagetimelive.com, you'll see all of our events. At the bottom, it says, do you want a live seat or a virtual seat? But the engagement is the important part. So we need to check in with them. So the cool thing about having that monitor, so the way we do it technology-wise is I have my computer just like we have now. Only instead of using this camera that points to me, we have a webcam that points out to whoever's presenting. We then take my computer and we shoot an HDMI out with a splitter. So one cord's coming out, HDMI, goes into a splitter. One goes to the projector so the people in the room can see it. And the other one goes to the monitor so the presenter can see all the people just like we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. And then what we always do is we can, tell people if they have to ask something, raise their hand. And so then we'll open up the mic just like you're doing here when you were doing the introductions, which is perfect. We have to be careful when there's a lot of them. Toastmasters are very forgiving, but what you did this morning probably wouldn't work for the average presentation because people aren't that patient and they are very self-focused. But here, it's like we're brothers and sisters. We're Toastmasters. So I don't know if I've answered your question. But
no, that helps. I mean, do you have somebody who's in charge of audiovisual who's just paying attention to technology while the rest of you are actually trying to present?
And we ran into a challenge. So this time, because when I use Keynote or PowerPoint and I'm controlling it from standing in front of the room and somebody pops in on chat, it can bump me out of PowerPoint. So what we've had to do is have a separate computer and have the chat going on, and the person who's controlling the chat and answering the chat is on a different computer than the one that's presenting and to the projector and also to the monitor. Okay. So it sounds more complicated than it is. It's actually pretty straightforward, but it's always a little challenging. Yes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions people want to know about. When you use webinars, what software do you use? What's your preferred method? And how do you determine a strategy, whether you're using Zoom sessions, the frequency, that type of thing?
Meaning the frequency in terms of?
Weekly, monthly, how often?
Well, thank you for the question. For my online university, we have one live one a week, which is for 1 hour. So in my online university, we have, let me bring this up so kind of explain it a little better. So one of the presentations that I do is called the top 10 mistakes. Top 10 speaking mistakes. So, and this is why you have to get comfortable. People give you a little bit of grace, but if you take too long, they'll get bored and it's tough to re-engage. So I call presenting, if you want to own the stage, there's 4 core competencies you have to be good at. So number 1 is creating and structuring your content. And some people are better at some of these than others, but you need to be good at all 4 because all 4 of them work together. So number 1 is stories, create, structuring content. Number 2 is stories that stick. Stories are the heartbeat of what we do. Anyone can tell a story, but do we remember your story 3 days later? And that's the key, understanding how to tell a world-class story that sticks. Core 3 is engagement or humor. How do you make them laugh? And then core 4 is your own personal delivery style, your voice. So what we do is in the university, the first week of the month, we have a live call on create and structure content. And I have 2 world-class coaches on that. Second week of the month, stories that stick. We focus on that and we do live coaching, kind of like we're doing now. The third week of the month, humor, and the fourth week of the month, delivery. So in my university, we do 1 a week. And then we have, once a month, we have the 2-day boot camps like we just did. I just finished one yesterday or Saturday. So it's also different if you're trying to sell it, how often you do it. And every market's a little different. And your list is different too. How often your list wants to hear from you. I don't know if, am I answering your question, Adrian?
Yes. Okay. The next question that I have is for folks who do standing videos as a part of their marketing promotions with the whiteboard or other similar device next to them. What is the optimal frame? Is it from the shoulders up, the whole body? What's your suggestion?
Well, great question. Thank you for that. What we have to realize is that so many people now, the market has moved so much that mobile is out engaging regular laptops. So you have to think, if it's this big, will they be able to read it? And that's the challenge. So if they're watching it on their phone, so I'm a fan of when I do my live ones, you can find them on YouTube. When I do my live ones, I'm probably from just a little bit above the waist up, but I try and get the camera so it's 3/4 of the, 2/3 to 3/4. That is the whiteboard, because I want people to be able to see that if I'm using a marker or something like that. The other idea is to use, I don't know if, is to do the online whiteboard. Now, I'm not very good with this, but you can use the online whiteboard. You have to get used to it, and it's another form of engagement. I'm more of a fan of have the slides and then adjust your slides if you have to. But if you're standing in front of the whiteboard, you have to realize that about this much of it has to be whiteboard, and we have to write big. You can't write anything tiny, or you have to have a way to bring the camera in. Otherwise, you're creating confusion. Whether it's online or in person, when I coach people, it's 99% clarity, clarity, clarity. How do I make it clearer? And even my own presentations, that's how you know you make them better, is you're making them clearer. Or I'm not a grammarian, but maybe more clear is proper. Does that answer that question?
Yes. The next question is, how do you balance inserting your personality into the webinar without detracting from the subject? Because some subjects are just extremely dry.
Well, that's our challenge. Is Ed Tate, fellow world champion, says this brilliantly. He says, our job for corporate presentations that are very number heavy, he said, our job is to turn the numbers back into people. Our job is turn the numbers back into people. So notice what I'm doing. I'm making it clearer by restating the important points. That's one of the ways to make things clearer. So we need to make sure we're doing that. Make sure we're making it super clear and repeat the important lines. And you and I, as the more we do presentations, the more we'll realize when we see people take notes and we see it over and over again, we know that's the spot, that's the killer phrase or the foundational phrase. So I think I went off on a tangent. And by the way, this is one of the things we need to do. Was that clear? Notice what I'm doing is I'm checking back to make sure I answered the question, because it may not, somebody who asked the question might not have had enough information to ask the specific question in the way that the expert answers it. So have I answered the question? Make sure you answer it before you move on.
Okay, perfect. If they will type in the chat if they didn't get the correct answer, and then we can come back to them.
Okay.
The next question is, how do you find the balance between effective, getting them to like you, and getting them to yes? And those videos from one end of the spectrum to another.
Yeah, and going back to the previous question, connecting the two of them, I don't think you can have too much personality if your intention is for the audience walking away with what they need. If you set your intention, almost everything else will fall into place. So if your intention is for their outcome, for them to get it, not you be the best presenter, not you be the best speaker, but if your intention is set for them to walk away with a different perspective, and everyone write that down, the value of your presentation is your perspective. If I don't leave with a different perspective, even if I don't agree with it, I have to have a different perspective. Otherwise, you wasted my time. And most of the best perspective comes from experience. And that's why we're listening to you. Look, if you've overcome, let's say, the death of a loved one, and I haven't, I need your help. I need you to make it clearer. We have this thing in my office called Darren it down. Kind of like dumb it down, but Darren it down. I'm a simple man, but that's what makes me a really good teacher, is I can't teach it until I understand it. So I have to ask more questions. I have to understand things. I have to put it in a format, even with humor, to make it easy to get across. So as long as your intention is right, I don't think the personality is too much. But, hi, Kitty. If you're, it's okay, no worries. But if you're trying to impress people, that's when the personality can be too much. But even notice my enthusiasm and intention. If you notice my enthusiasm, you're going to like me. You're going to feel like I'm there for you. And if I can get nothing else across, whether it's live or online, it's setting that intention right. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I have another one for you.
Bring it on.
A lot of members in the club want to know, there are 50 people on the screen. How do you manage to maintain eye contact with the camera and still check out the gallery view for your audience reactions?
Well, I check, I have it in gallery view, so I have about 20 people on. And oh my gosh, I just realized I flipped over to the side. My hero is on, Dawn Nacera, the woman who taught me so much. Oh my gosh, Dawn Nacera. Mwah, she's awesome. Dawn, I still talk about the aha. So write this down, everyone. All right, so I got to even prove this. Now that I say it. So Dawn, you're going to be blown away by this. So when I teach people how to present, and forgive me for being selfish, it's like one of my heroes is on. So when I teach people, there's a difference between speaking and being heard. Speaking is speaking to the subconscious mind. Excuse me. Speaking is speaking to the conscious mind. If you want to be heard and change someone's perspective, it's the subconscious mind. So Don Nacera, I give you credit all the time. An aha is the letting go of a previous belief. An aha is the letting go of a previous belief. And when you and I present, like even our Geeks on Tour, we need to walk away understanding what the button is and how to use it and how it will help us. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So I'm going back to Dawn. I love you, Dawn. All right, so going back to Adrian. So you just need enough people. And so I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's about 18 or 20 people on one of those pages. Like, you just need a sample size. And remember to key in on that person who's smiling and happy, because they're the ones that are going to give you that love.
Okay, can you talk about your marketing strategy? You brought that up. From the time that you entered the competition to win and become the champion, had you already had a marketing strategy before you entered the contest, or is that something that you thought about once you now became the champion?
Well, I started Toastmasters in 1994, and I joined Toastmasters to work on the skill, and NSA, the National Speakers Association, to work on the business. And the two organizations drove me to do this professionally. So I wanted to be a professional speaker long before the contest. And too many people think the trophy is going to give them a career. No, the trophy gets you more invitations for free speeches than you ever had before. And Wells Fargo, who holds my mortgage for my house, does not care that I spoke in China. They just want the money. So we've got to be careful about that. So going back to the question, I had a self-published book, Laugh and Get Rich, in 1998. So I was working on being a professional speaker. Now, real quick story. In 1998, I was in a humorous speech contest and came in second at the division level. And the person who came in first did not use original comedy. And I was mad. I was frustrated. I was so upset. But I didn't have the self-confidence to protest. So I decided that I was going to boycott Toastmasters. And in 1999, Toastmasters went on without Darren LaCroix. So that was a good humbling. I thought I was going to take Toastmasters down. No, that didn't happen. But thank goodness I had a great mentor. And see, at the time, I was working to be a professional speaker, and I was working a day job. I worked at Bose Corporation, the stereo speaker company. So I worked a day job. I was speaking anywhere and everywhere I could and selling my book in the back of the room. And I was marketing myself every waking moment. The one thing I wasn't doing was working on my craft to become a better speaker. So one of my comedy mentors said, Darren, he noticed I was trying to find the story that would launch my career. He said, Darren, stop. Instead, take the stories you already have and make them so good, someone will pay to hear them. And that was a different mindset. So in 2001, I didn't join the speech contest to win. When I joined, I didn't even know it went past district. I thought you won your district, you were king of the world, they gave you $1 million check.
Darren, we're right at 10 of the hour, which is when you said you had to run to your other appointment. Is there anything you want to close with, or is there somebody you see in the gallery view who has a burning question you'd like to call on them? I'll let you decide how to end.
Quick question.
Go for it.
Are you an accredited speaker, and do you recommend that we go after that credential here in Toastmasters?
Number one, yes, I'm an accredited speaker. I only got it 2 years ago. And by the way, you guys are going to love Cheryl. Join Cheryl next week about how to connect with any audience. She's awesome, and she also is an accredited. So I just got it a couple years ago, and it was actually a bet I had with somebody, and we decided to do it together. And I didn't get it my first year. And people said, well, why are you going for it? You're already a professional speaker. And the reason was any good process is going to improve you. Don't do it for the letters after your name. Do it for the speaker it makes you. So if you want to be a professional, you have to get some paid speeches. Go to Toastmasters.org, search out accredited speaker program, download and figure out what you need to do, and it's going to help you start putting things in line for your speaking business. Now, even though I was a professional, I had to reach out to some of my past clients to get them to do a survey that went right to Toastmasters. Because I did that, I actually got booked again because I reached out to them. So I got more business. I got another speech. That led to them buying my DVDs to sell to their trainers. And number two, most importantly to me, just being selfish, I got great demo video because I got to speak at International in front of 800 people, great camera shoot. And so I use that as part of my marketing tool now. So do it for those reasons. But don't just do it for accredited speaker after your name. Nobody's going to hire you because of those letters.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But do it for the person you become. Thank you. And real quick, if anyone is interested and you want to take Masako's advice, you can go to stagetimeuniversity.com. I'm going to be late for a meeting. They're going to kill me, but oh well. StagetimeUniversity.com. I'm trying to get there. I know you can see it. I got too many windows open. But anyway, StagetimeUniversity.com. I teach you either the business or the skill of speaking. This is what I love to do. It's super affordable. You can do it by the month for $39, the business for $59, or you can do an annual one if that helps. But just check it out. I love what I do. And David, thank you for having me here. I hope I've given you a new perspective so you have an aha. Thank you very much. Keep doing what you're doing. And remember the words of Mark Brown, who told me, you have a story to tell and someone needs to hear it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Darren.
Thanks. Bye, Masako. Thank you, Adrian.
All right. We're waiting to see how skillfully he would make the pivot to the little marketing pitch at the end, but it was well done. So we have a few minutes to wrap up. We usually like to ask at the end for a little bit of reaction from our guests. Why don't we pick on people who are visiting for the first time here, starting with Marilyn.
Yeah, David, thank you very much. Heard some of that content at the conference, but since I was competing that night, I probably didn't pay as close attention as I did tonight, and just really valuable. So thank you. And when I get done with my regular Monday night Toastmasters, this is a great alternative. Thank you.
Fantastic. How about Ann?
Unmute. There we go. Yeah, I liked it. I love the diversity from all over the world. That's very cool.
Right.
Great idea, David. Good job.
All right. And we certainly want to encourage everybody who came just for the workshop to come back and see a regular meeting, see how this works on a regular basis. I don't know whether we share quite as sharp of wisdom on every single week, but we get a lot of practice. And that's just like you do in Toastmasters in person. We're learning how to work through all those details of what to do when the technology betrays you, as it does periodically. How about Deanna?
There. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Hi. This has been really interesting. It's been neat to hear Darren and be in a meeting with Darren. And it's funny, when I first introduced at the beginning, I didn't really clue in. It's a Toastmasters meeting. So Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, other welcome guests. Hi. Thanks for having me in this, and I echo whoever just spoke about the diversity. I mean, people are all over the world, and that is so cool. And this is fascinating just to see everybody. I'm trying to look and see who's speaking, and that's a bit of a challenge. I enjoyed the cat, and thanks for having me in your meeting.
Right.
And I'll see about coming back again.
And we are trying to do a workshop like this on a monthly basis. So we're also looking for suggestions on what would be good topics, who would be good speakers that you can recommend. Jim Barber, is this your first time with us?
Hello? No,
There it is.
second time.
All right. Thanks for visiting. And did you enjoy this presentation tonight?
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to getting involved. It's going to have to be after the first of the year, but I'll be back.
All right. Terrific. How about Jonathan?
Hi there. Yes, this has been my first online meeting, so I thought I'd come along and see what it's like, and I've picked up some good tips, and I'll certainly plan to be back.
All right. We hope to see you back. How about Pablo?
Thanks for having me. I actually joined because I attended in the district conference that we had 2 weeks ago, the keynote speech from Darren, and I wanted to see more. And I didn't know that this was actually a meeting, a Toastmaster meeting online. So I'm very glad that you have this, and I'm very interested in joining many other times. So I would like to know whether we will receive information now that we have signed for the first time.
We'll follow up with a link to the replay and some other information. Our VP of membership will make sure you hear from us. Do not doubt that. Adrian Waz.
Oh, hi. Darren gave me a few tips about presenting online, and the tips he gave were just wonderful. Some of the stuff that I took down would apply to my speaking as well. So, yeah.
Okay, terrific. How about Nansen?
Hello. This is the second time. I'm very glad to come back. I'm looking forward to your next all the meetings. I'll try to join you.
All right, terrific. Devin.
I really enjoyed it. The part that actually threw me off is because I was thinking of a speech because it's going to be time to give my first speech soon. And when he told me that you should focus on making your story really good rather than think of the story that's going to be just so amazing, it really resonated.
All right, terrific. What did the baby think of it? That's what I want to know.
She was excited. She's very into everybody speaking. It made it really rough to try and feed her.
There we go. Let's see. Who else do we have here? I think mostly I'm seeing other members. Garfield, I think this is your first time joining us online.
Yes, this is my first time joining the group. I saw him at the conference, and I must say I enjoyed hearing him again. And I did enjoy the meeting, and I hope that this can be a part of my regular Monday nights.
Yes. Okay. And how about Martin?
Hey,
Martin.
a great time. I'm often teaching or on the road, and just want to thank the Geeks on Tour for the relentless inviting me to this. Now I'm a big fan, so if I'm not here, I'll be referring people to you because I say I work 7 days a week and take a day off, no matter what.
Okay.
And so it was excellent. Real good tips, good information, and I really like that he noticed I've got overhead lights, and I'm finally getting some good lights here. And I needed that push over the stage to get it done, so it's great. And very well run, too. And a good book you got there behind you, I think, some too. And,
yeah, well, we're trying That's a little branding exercise
I love it.
there
I
as
love
well.
it. I sent you a LinkedIn invite a while ago too, so it's good.
Okay.
Good job.
Very cool.
Thank you.
We've got Dawn with us, who's starting her own online club.
Hi. Yeah, great meeting. I enjoyed it. And Adrian, you did an excellent job of moderating, so that was just a delight. Great club.
Yes, thank you, Adrian, for being our traffic cop there with all the interests we had. How about Philip? No, he disappeared.
Oh, he's on mute. You're on mute, Philip.
I'm unmuting you, Philip.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Unfortunately, David, I arrived very late and only got the ending of his speech, but it sounded terrific.
Okay. Well, we'll send out a replay link for what that's worth.
Please. And to be here next time.
All right. Terrific. Is there anybody else that I didn't want to? We're going to wrap up in just a second. Anybody else want to say anything before we wrap up? I see Lois unmuting.
Well, I was going to mention we had Glynis. I don't think we've heard from her.
Hi, thank you very much, Louis and David. I think that was a wonderful meeting. I'm happy to be here. In fact, just your meeting last Monday helped me in my first online presentation last Friday to my company. So I definitely will be joining. And thank you so much for the great tips that I learned today from Darren. So thank you.
Terrific. Actually, I think we have, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting how to pronounce it again. Is it, I see Sijaya, or help me out.
Hey, hi. Thank you for that wonderful meeting. It was a very powerful session, and it's the first time I'm attending this online session. And I am looking forward to meeting you in regular meeting. Let me know the schedule when you are joining online.
Okay, it's this same time every Monday, and we will be sending out follow-up information. Don't worry. Like as I say, Lois will make sure you hear from us.
Tuesday in Australia.
All right.
And also, David Bruchon wanted to say something.
Sure. Bruchon?
So David, first of all, on behalf of the club, I would really want to thank you for bringing Darren for this kind of a presentation. Wonderful. And I really want to say the moderator, I forget her name now.
Adrian.
Adrian, your facial variety was amazing. Not only did you moderate, but you actually animated all the questions. It was really beautiful. I mean, I really like that. Thank you.
I'm like that in real life. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and we do hope we see you another week.
Thank you, David, for having him. That was
David. Good job.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, David. Awesome job.
Thank you, Darren.